Hi everyone, it's Nicole Williams for Bold and Blissful Women, how to connect with your feminine essence to create the extraordinary life and love you desire. Today we have Maryjane Kapteyn, which I am very excited to have here. I've seen your work and I know how that we can all truly relate to it because it's about how do you stop settling for less? How do you set up your boundaries in love? And how do you allow yourself to open up to love while also being true to yourself and honoring who you are? So I think that's really, really, really key. Thank you so much for participating in this summit.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love doing this and love connecting with new people and you and other coaches and deepening into this conversation of, self-love to attract love.
Yeah, definitely. Could you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, the work that you do, and what brought you here? Tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, thank you. I always like to say I'm a recovering nice gal, and I think that recovery continues because I'm going to always deepen another layer of that. And what I mean by that is that being too nice often means pleasing and overgiving and over supporting, being a caretaker, trying to
Hmm.
perfect yourself for love, trying too hard to get love. It really comes from a place of that there's some part that doesn't feel completely worthy or good enough or doesn't trust that love is going to be given back. We've had heartaches and disappointments and rejections and maybe even some traumas. And we walk into a relationship really, walking in with that fear factor of, how do I make this happen, right? So we're doing the right thing of trying to like take charge and make love occur for us, but it really is coming from a place of fear. And I always say the intention by which you do anything is the energy that it creates, is the attraction factor, right? So you come in with this loaded emotion from every past heartache and experience. And by the way, the nicer you are, the more of those you have, because nice
Really?
people tend to be overlooked and undervalued and treated less than, taken advantage of in a lot of ways. They also tend to attract the same type of energy because they're trying to recreate the past pattern,
Hmm.
but only have the happy ending this time round in order to heal their past. And so I was that girl. And I was the girl who looked around out in the world. I was a fitness coach, moved into life coaching, working with clients. They're coming to me with their love issues. I'm struggling with my love issues. And I'm trying to go, what's the block here? Like, what is the name? What is the conversation? What is the pattern? What is the thing that's actually happening here that's blocking me? Because I'm doing all the things that all the experts are telling me to do. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm a geeky academic because I read all the popular stuff and I read all the academic stuff as well. And I kept going, I don't hear a voice in here for what I'm struggling with and what my clients are struggling with, which they're all too nice people. And so my own breakthrough came from really just having to hit my own bottom. I dated a lot of, I struggled for a long time, like 20 years of like
Yeah.
dating and being there. um, being in a relationship that where I just was, for 10 years, I stayed with a man hoping he'd finally commit to me, thinking that love was enough, having a lot of those love illusions, believing, just sort of not being mistreated, but being ignored, being, just sort of not valued, not appreciated, not seen for who I really am. I don't think he really liked me. It's really weird. I look back now and I'm like, how did I tolerate that? It was a subtle form of like eroding my sense of self and my sense of lovability and self-worth. And by the way, the longer you're in the wrong relationship, the more your self-worth is going to toilet, the more that your self-esteem is going to go down. And that's how you know you're in trouble, because it makes you more dependent, more needy or desperate for another person's love and validation, which sets you up to be nice, right? To please and to seek approval outside of yourself. So nice girls and nice guys are really people that give themselves away to be loved, and they didn't get into that pattern by accident. Like I said, it happened because of all these things. And so what ends up happening is that you just end up in relationships like I did, where you settle for, I have the security of being with somebody, a sense of myself being in this relationship, but really there's no relationship. I'm in it by myself. I'm meeting my own needs. That person isn't seeing me, validating me, listening to me, supporting me in any way. In fact, I'm doing all the loving and supporting. So that was me for a long time. Then I go out and dating and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy insane. Dating is not always fun, and it's definitely not fun for a nice person. um, trying to screen for love and protect yourself and open your heart, and you're hopeful but you're scared, and you're walking in with all this stuff. And so dated a lot of really nice guys that just weren't my nice guy, then really got duped by a lot of not so nice guys, and I had to hit my bottom by being in what I would now classify as an abusive relationship with a sexual narcissist who cheated on me pathologically with hundreds of women, like brutal, in the short time that I was with him. And by the end of that relationship, myself, whatever self-worth, it was weird. I was at the height of my life, I thought, at that time, the height of my self-worth and my sense of self. I thought, how could I be the successful, happy, fulfilled person who ended up with someone like that, right? Yeah. And then got hooked emotionally. And that once I knew that I had been victimized and hurt, why was it so hard for me to let go? And then really understanding the abuse cycle on a deeper level. And so my bottom for me, and it probably took, I would say, about 5 years to recover. 5 years from an 8-month relationship. It's a big price to pay. And to understand how I could be so compatible with somebody who was so destructive. That was also very fascinating. And but that bottom came the No More Nice Gal. That was the shift. That was the understanding of, wait a minute, being too nice has made me a codependent person. That codependency and my past wounds, that core wound that I never fully healed, because if I'd healed it, I wouldn't have attracted or been attracted to someone like that. That core wound that was still operating in me that needed to shift and needed to heal. Came up to the surface, and I did some seriously powerful work because my life depended on it at that time. You hit bottom like that, it's the bottom of the bottom. And the principle that came out of that was not only No More Nice Gal, as in never again. I will never give myself away to be loved by anybody again in a way where I have to compromise who I am, where I ignore my intuition. Because what I realized is when I looked back, everything looked perfect and beautiful, and it did for a very long time before I found out the truth. My gut intuition, my body intuition, told me 2 weeks in that there was something wrong. And I ignored it because I wanted the dream of love so badly. Right? And I wanted it to be true and real. And so then it was so hard for me to let go of that. And I wanted to change him to be the man that I needed him to be. Right? Yeah. So then I'll fix you, I'll help you, I'll support you. And none of that is conscious. You don't consciously set yourself up to be in that type of dynamic. But it was the same mistake I made with the nice guy who, treated me with mild neglect, like I was a plant in the corner that he occasionally watered. And even with that guy, I was just hoping to change his mind, hoping to change him to become the man that I needed him to be, hoping that he would finally one day see me if I was just wonderful enough and perfect enough and nice enough and the best girlfriend I could possibly be. And that really is the nice girl and nice guy mistake, is that we believe that we have to do more and be more and have more and earn more and become more in order to be loved. And my message is, you are worthy already. You're worthy of being loved already. And when you know that and you shift that and you shift all the core wounds and you get all the tools that you were talking about, the self-loving tools, the putting yourself first is part of that self-love tool, is you put your happiness, your well-being, and your life first. So instead of trying to find yourself through somebody else, you actually find you. And then you look for someone who is a match to that. And that's the difference of the breakthrough on the opposite side of it. And then you actually get to be unconditionally loved for who you are, because you're no longer performing or earning your way into love. You already know that you're worthy of it. And you're just looking for that person who naturally loves and falls in love with you just as you are, without you having to do more or be more.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I agree wholeheartedly, because I personally work with women who are in the process of finding themselves. And what I find that happens is that sometimes you come in through the external pursuit of maybe finding your man, but what happens is that the whole process looks different than when you thought it would look like. You're like, when am I going to dating? What do I do when I'm dating? But I always tell them the process is much deeper than that.
Very deep.
Definitely.
Because you can do everything right as a nice girl, and I did. I'm like, the hair is right, the makeup's right, the body's right, the flirting is right, the conversation is right. I did all the things right, and I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting the results I wanted. And the reason is because if you've had those heartaches, those betrayals, those rejections, and we've all had them, And by the way, the subtle ones are actually more powerfully harming, because it's kind of like you're slowly being boiled in water, like the frog analogy. And the emotional ones are deeper. So it doesn't matter whether you have a dramatic story of I was assaulted in a relationship, or I've been abused, or you have that I've just never really been seen, I've never really been loved, I've never really been appreciated, never really been acknowledged. They're all the same. They're all the same in terms of that pain. And this, if anything, makes you think that you're making progress when you really aren't. It kind of tricks you a little bit, because you don't know that you're slowly being boiled, that you're losing yourself piece by piece by piece in love. And that's the mistake that I always had, is I come out of a relationship feeling empty and devastated and broken, even if I knew intellectually that I never wanted to be with that person again, or that it wasn't the right relationship for me. And I'm like, why is it having such a big devastating effect on me, or my clients for that matter, when I worked with them? And it's because you've given away pieces of yourself. And part of this healing process is reclaiming those pieces, because that's the power that you gave away. That's the self that you're looking for. That's where your worthiness lies. That's where your power lies. So when you go on that date and you have had all of this stuff from before, you're walking in with your core wound, which has a tremendous amount of fear, anxiety, and pressure connected to it. You have this high expectation of the love that you're wanting to create, and then you're putting a ton of pressure on yourself because you're wanting to perform your way into that love and show and demonstrate how worthy you are, because part of you doubts it because someone in the past didn't love you sufficiently, which is why you now feel like you're not okay, or you're not enough. And that's what we want to heal. You walk into that date, and by the way, he doesn't see you. He sees all this stuff. He sees your anxiety, he sees your fear, and he sees the pressure. And that's what you're walking into a date with. I call it the nice gal fear factor. It's like you're walking into an episode of Fear Factor, and no one wants to jump in a bale of worms with you. They're going to go, they might not even articulate it. They might not even be aware of it, especially if you're with a guy. He'll just have a gut intuition, and he won't feel attracted to you, or he won't feel compelled by you, or he'll just go, something's weird here. Because I always say it's your energy, right? It's your energy first. That's what people smell from you. They're going to smell your fear. They're going to feel out your energy, and they're going to go, everything looks great here, but there's something off with this girl. I don't know what that is. And that's why a lot of women can't get past the first month of dating, or the first couple of dates with a guy, or the first date with a guy, is because your fear factor is what he sees. And by the way, you cannot be loved if a man can't see you. He can't fall in love with you, can't see you, and he can't see you past your fear and your wounds. So we have to heal that core wound, that deeper stuff that you're talking about. Amen, sister. You got to heal that deep core wound, because that wound is what's causing you to do all these nice girl behaviors. And those nice girl behaviors are making you feel more afraid, more isolated, and more starving for love, which makes you more desperate, needy. And you're not needy naturally. You're not desperate naturally. None of that's natural. That's an emotional reaction from being caught in a nice girl cycle. And what I do with people is disrupt the cycle. Because if I can just unchink the arm, if I can just get in there and disrupt that, then we stop the pattern from continuously replaying.
No, I definitely mean, like, in full honesty, vulnerability here, like, that was my thing, in the sense that, for many years, I didn't have any single guy ask me out, like, throughout high school or anything. Like, I would get dressed up. I would be, my mom would tell me, like, well, fix your hair, do something, all of that. And, I could even feel a certain level of judgment coming from my mom, like, what? Well, she's beautiful, but I don't see it. Like, she never has a boyfriend or anything. And I could feel that insecurity. But the thing is that, I had certain beliefs that I had to work through. Like, I was in front of a guy, and, like, I would be bold. I would do anything. I would even approach instead of being approached. And, the guy was like, she's nice. Like, she's obviously beautiful. But there's something off. And I even couldn't see that there was something off in my behavior, right?
Me neither. I just kept going, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? And then what really makes me sad over time is that what am I doing wrong turns into what's wrong with me. Mm. And then suddenly it becomes like this thing of like, there's something wrong with me. I must be broken. I must be flawed. I must be not good enough. I must not be okay because nobody's loving me. And by the way, you're not broken because you think that. I'm in this like nerdy moment again where I'm deepening into the conversation
it's
around.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And one of the things that they said right away is that every single person on the human planet, we're built this way. Okay. It's in your genes. It's like, the body you got's the body you got. You can do the best and work with it, but this is the body you got, right?
Mhm.
so, so the biological psychology that's hardwired into every single human on the planet is that our sense of lovability comes from other people.
Mm.
That's true for everybody. What happens with a nice gal is that somewhere along here in your journey, you got a message that you weren't okay. And maybe you got that message over and over again. I had a client who was bullied as a child. Obviously, that affected her self-esteem and sense of worth and identity. And also emotionally abused in her family, right? So you put those two ingredients together. That's a woman who walks into the world mistrusting herself and mistrusting others, trying to be loved, but also mistrusting that people will love her back.
Yeah.
Naturally. And yet we need a sense of mirror of relationship. We need the mirror of love to come back in our direction for us to know that we're lovable. And if you haven't received that mirror, especially if the first couple of relationships that you had, whether it's your first crush, your first love, whatever, was damaging and wounding to you, was a heartache, was a rejection, was a pain, was a betrayal, wow, that mirror of love is that core wound that you're carrying. And so every time you walk into a relationship, you have that fear that I'm not going to be lovable enough. So you adopt nice girl behaviors in order to be and appear more lovable.
Wow.
But then it's like a performance, right? Of having to, and who you really are gets covered over. And there's also a lack of trust and vulnerability in there because you don't trust that you're good enough. You don't trust that you can be loved, but you're desperately hoping for it. It's a weird combination.
It's a mix. You're driving yourself crazy on the inside, basically.
Yeah, and then you're full of confusion and anxiety and frustration, and you're just trying, like every nice girl has the positive intention of just trying to get it right, just trying to figure out how do I make this work, But I can honestly tell you that the trying too hard deepens the cycle of fear. And that fear creates more isolation, creates more starvation for love. And for the women who might be on the call, because I always ask this question, it was such a deep pain for me. And part of the process is that you really begin to trust you, which also you might also trust the divine if you believe in something greater than yourself or your higher self, some other part of you guiding you. The greatest pain was to feel like I couldn't trust myself. That I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to navigate relationship. That I didn't know how to get the love that I was desperately hoping for, which is a natural, normal need. Stop beating yourself up for wanting to be loved. You need it. Like you need food and breath and air and, all the other things that water, we need it. It's no more important. You're not, there's nothing wrong with you that you need to be loved, right? Like that's part of we all die without it. Babies die without touch and without love, right? They just don't thrive. So we don't thrive without it. The deepest question that I had was like, why have I allowed myself to be harmed and hurt? You kind of brought that up at the beginning, which I thought was so brilliant, of like, why have I allowed myself to be mistreated or taken advantage of or hurt when I kind of saw it, or once I knew that I was a victim to that, why did I stay, or why was it hard for me to let go or detach from somebody? There's lots of psychological reasons why that happens. But one of the deepest parts is because when you're starving for love, everything is out here, right? That core wound wants to be healed and you're starving for love. And you end up making yourself dependent on somebody else because you're seeking something out here. You're seeking something out here. And because of that mirror of love, we're vulnerable to others' opinions of us.
So what would you say? Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, so why you end up compromising your standards or doing something you would normally never do, or dating that guy and ignoring your intuition that told you to avoid that person, is because of that dream of love, because that need for love is so powerful, and yet the way we've gone about it is wrong. And so it's actually a biological drive, and we can bypass that, right?
I want to ask you something before I don't want to lose track of this. Sure. So we're talking a lot about intuition, owning that voice, how that voice is the most important voice that you will ever have in your life. How do you recognize when it's the voice of your intuition versus a voice of fear? And in a specific case is like when you're talking about following your intuition when you're in front of a guy, whether you are thinking, maybe I should date him, maybe I should go out with him or not, but then I feel funny about it. How do you recognize that it's the voice of your intuition versus that voice that is resistant to opening up again to
Yeah.
love?
Yeah. And by the way, you can be both. You can be a love seeker and a love avoidant who swings between two pendulums,
Yeah.
right? I really want love. Oh my God, I'm scared of love. Oh my God, I really want love, but I'm scared. And we're not scared of love in itself. We're scared of what we think love is, which is the pain of our past.
Yeah.
I love that question. What a rich question. Yes. If you're back and forth and if you're in your head, you are definitely in your fear. You're in your fear, like your invented fear, the ego fear of, am I enough? Is he okay? Does he like me? I have a famous blog that is, I like me, or I like you, but I like me more. And that's the nice girl shift. Is you stop going, does he like me? Am I okay? Am I enough? Does my hair look great? Is he attracted to me? What does he think? Is this going to lead anywhere? Is this the guy I'm going to marry? Are we compatible? Blah, 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 blah. And you're going, should I not? And you're back and forth. You're in your fear factor, right? Fear always has a lot of confusion, and it always has a lot of story, and it always has a lot of content. When you have an actual bodily fear factor, the one I wish I listened to when I bottomed out with my worst relationship, that deep intuition that I have, it's body, it's visceral. You can't argue with it. It's either one clear statement or it's a feeling. It's such a strong, powerful feeling that's like no or stop. It's like you can't argue with it. It's a singular voice or a singular gut feeling that is a body reaction. And here's what's really interesting. I have convinced myself to be in love with men I shouldn't have, like in the past. And how I always did that was with my head. Every time, right? Every single time. And what was so fascinating to me is that I had your body knows first. So my body was actually repelled by somebody, but my head and my heart were attracted to them, which tells me that I was functioning from my wound, that my core wound was driving my attraction factor. My powerful emotions that were unhealed from the past were replaying themselves out. So by the way, you can know this, but if you don't heal those emotions, that's what I always say, if you don't go to the core of the pattern, you can do all the right stuff out here. You can do the self-love, you can do the boundaries, you can do the I know myself, I feel self-esteem out here, I have external confidence like you had. I had a lot of that too. You can have all those right things out here, but it will never work because that emotion is what's creating your results every single time. Just like the nice gal fear factor. That fear factor walks in with you every single time. Those love illusions, beliefs walk in with you. Your whole past is walking in with you on that date. And unless, or relationship or business meeting or whatever you're trying to create that you feel blocked in, it's the emotion that's driving it. You got to go back to that core wound. So back to your question about the intuition, it's a visceral body reaction that you can't argue with, and you often have no explanation for it.
I find that bodily reaction tends to be like slower. It takes more momentum. Like I feel it very, very, very heavy in my body versus something that's that passes in 1 second. I know it. It's very tangible. It's like time slows down, and I just hone in into that energy. I was like, I'm going to listen. I don't know why, but I'm going to listen.
Beautiful.
And it's about honoring your voice.
Yeah, no one ever comes to me, and I certainly didn't in my past. I don't look back and go, boy, I really wish I had listened to my gut intuition. No, I always go back and go, I really wish I'd listened to my intuition on those other times that I really, had that powerful experience. And here's the other part of it is that over time, nice girls, depending on how their pattern is playing out, can actually, over time, dampen that intuitive knowing. That intuitive knowing will actually become less loud. They lose their ability to protect themselves. And that's very dangerous. And I call it the nice girl vulnerability. Every woman has a vulnerability. Nice girls have even more vulnerabilities. And the deeper the wound, the bigger that vulnerability is. And so you'll either go on a date and that man will smell that fear, and he'll go, great, I can take advantage of that. And then you end up in trouble, right? Because there's a man that's going to use you, abuse you, not treat you well, take advantage of you, serve his own needs first and not think about yours. Or you're going to meet a really nice guy and you're going to miss that opportunity because he's going to go, that's way too much work. There's something going on there.
So
right?
It's all about going back to the core wound, right? And speaking of going to the core wound, and you were mentioning about this core wound about trusting yourself, like you come out to the world not trusting yourself, not trusting that you're lovable. How do you start to trust yourself again? That would be my question.
I love it. I mean, every woman has to deep in that plan differently. But let me tell you, the principle or the commitment that changes. I always think commitment changes everything. Yes. It changes absolutely everything. It guides your choices. It guides your behaviors. It guides how you're going to feel about yourself, what you're going to say about yourself in terms of the experiences that you've had, your beliefs, all of it, right? Commitment changes everything. So you get committed to you. One of the beautiful gifts, although I always want it, it's my only regret and one of the things I'd rewrite in my past because it was so painful and hard to overcome. But, the No More Nice Girl wouldn't exist without it, right? So that horrible pain that I went through in my bottoming out. And the powerful thing that got me through it, because and ask any woman who's dated a narcissist what ends up happening to your sense of self at the end. You just it's shattered. Mm-hmm. And your nervous system is completely fried, and just getting up every day is hard, right? So that's where I was, my absolute bottom, and my prayer every day was, I will get through this. It's just one day at a time, right? Like it will get better. One day I will feel happy and whole again, and in that process, what came out of it was the commitment that guided me to get to that place of wholeness. That was already within me and that I knew was there, and I just had to keep seeking and seeking. Instead of seeking out here, I was seeking that part within. And it is put yourself first. And not in a bitchy, snobby, self-centered, me kind of way, but a truly self-loving, spiritually honoring, I am worthy, I'm worthwhile kind of way, which naturally comes from that I will never and no longer, here's No More Nice Gal, allow myself to be with anyone who disregards my feelings, who harms me in any way, including myself. So I'm no longer self-harming, and I'm no longer allowing any harm to come in my life. So that might be where some of the people on the conversation in our call are here today, is, you know what, I am in an unhealthy relationship, or I am doing self-destructive things in relationship to other people or with myself. And I have to declare at this point, I'm putting me first. I'm putting love first in my life, which means no longer being nice. And that means no longer allowing this harm in my life, so that you put your happiness first, and then you begin to do what fills up my heart, what allows me to feel good, what is going to repair my hurt and my wound, what am I seeking out here that I now need to give to myself. And then I also need to surround myself, because we do find how lovable we are by those we surround ourselves with. That's why who you hang around is so vitally important, because who you hang around is the psychology that you end up with. So surround yourself with positive environments, whether they're, spiritually based or community-based or whatever, but put yourself around friends, people, situations. I watch Oprah every day because I love her. And, I get my inspiration there. I love Wayne Dyer. I listen to him all the time still, and he's one of my favorite teachers. And so you gotta infuse the good stuff back in. You gotta build it up, and not as in a self-improvement, there's something wrong with me kind of way, but in a spiritual, emotional nourishment kind of way. Because if you've been out here seeking, and you've been overgiving, accommodating, pleasing, supporting, perfecting, caretaking, all those things that nice people do too much of, which is always helping everyone out here and giving every part of themselves away to be loved, liked, and accepted. Exactly. You start filling you up, because the reason why you feel dependent, needy, desperate is because you've given everything away and you're freaking empty. You feel empty and lost without somebody in your life or certain people or certain experiences. And we got to fill up your love cup, because if your love cup is empty, you'll continue that cycle. So putting you first absolutely, unequivocally changes the whole ball game.
Definitely.
And how you do that is different for everybody. What fills you up is going to be slightly different than what fills me up, right? But I love dancing, I love singing, I love walks, I love laughing with my little boy, I love, hot baths, I love tea, and those are, they sound really simple, like the self-love thing. But the other thing is I pray. Prayer is deep for me. Meditation, like whatever is going to fill up your love cup. Yoga, which I miss, which I don't have as much time for, and it's changing soon again, so I can get back to it. But you got to fill that piece up, because why you come in with a fear factor and why there's so much fear around love and why there's a desperation or a neediness is because your love cup is empty. Fill it up, and then suddenly you actually start attracting more people will come into your life who match that level of self-love that you have for you. And then the worthiness gets rebuilt again. And then your confidence slowly builds. And you said, then how do we start to trust ourselves again? Well, when your love cup is full, you will trust yourself to make loving decisions. When your love cup is empty, you're starving. And this is my analogy for that. You're at this, I always imagine myself like, where I used to be, which was, I was like in Skid Row, right? Starving to death. And someone came along, and I'm a vegetarian, and they came along and they tried to offer me a Big Mac. Well, I took the Big Mac. It was against my values, against who I am, against everything. I didn't even like Big Macs. They didn't even taste good. It wasn't what I really wanted. It wasn't soul food. It wasn't going to fill me up. But guess what? I'm freaking starving. I'm starving. So I'm going to eat it because my survival depended on it. And that's how nice girls walk into a relationship. Well, then guess what? You have to eat Big Macs every day when you'd rather have, or you get scraps, right? Like think of that first relationship as scraps. Little scraps, and then I'm so like, oh, so grateful that you're giving me scraps of love. Bullshit. Hell no. Forget that. No more nice gal. I want the big gourmet vegetarian buffet with the raw food section, like that's what I'm looking for. I always love food analogies, and I love food. So, that's how we're walking into, that's the relationship that you're in right now. So first of all, let's elevate you out of Skid Row, because no one's going to feed you well in Skid Row, right? Let's elevate, get you to a better community, right? Get you in an environment that's actually going to start filling your soul. And then guess what? You will have a period of time where you won't know where your next meal comes from. And you're going to have to go through that uncomfortable, uncertain place of feeling kind of empty and not having the sources of fulfillment yet. And then you got to be like me and the other people who rebuilt it, is you take it day by day and over time. But what you're basically doing is to trust yourself again means you undeniably no longer ever allow yourself to be hurt or harmed, from the subtlest forms to the biggest, which is if a man even dismisses how you feel repeatedly, ding, 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 big time warning bells should go off in your head, and every part of you should say, no, I'm not going to settle for the guy who's kind of insecure that I have to build up, or I'm not going to settle for the guy who subtly puts me down, or the guy who just doesn't see me, and it's sort of like I'm the filler girl that he has in between until he finds the girl that he's crazy about. Hell no, right? So forget that.
You're totally right.
That's how you build your self-trust, is you make loving decisions for yourself every single day, step by step, and you get better at it like a muscle, and you build it until the point that your love cup is full, and guess what? What you attract then is completely different than what you attracted before.
And I think that what happens sometimes is that, when you try to look at the big picture of, I'm going to find my man that treats me this way, this way, and this one, this one, this way, when you are that hurt, just going and imagining that big picture can, frighten you even further. So I think it's really important to go one day at a time, as you said, like, okay, I'm going to trust myself to get to this next place. Like, how do you eat an elephant? Like, one bite at a time. Because what happens is that you start to overthink. You start to overthink and question, and you don't want that. And I think that I loved, and because I think you mentioned it for a little bit, but I love that. It's about how you said you love to dance, you drink tea, you do all these sort of things because you're connecting again with your body, like you're coming back to your feminine, so you're not so much in your head questioning fears and all that, coming back, treating yourself with love, being there to support yourself, and that builds up that self-trust even further.
Absolutely. And noticing the areas in which I don't love myself, right? The things I need to stop doing. So I always say if you want to stop a habit, you always want to insert the good stuff, right? Because it helps you not do the self-destructive stuff. But like I had a little slip yesterday. I'm on a raw food cleanse, and someone put some very tempting food in front of me, and I'm an overeater. Like I have a lot of nice girls are, we put other people's needs and feelings first, and we squish down our own. And so the ways that I would manage all that emotional squish down, my big technical term there, was to eat, or the way that I would fill up that emptiness was to eat. And so for me, food is a representation of that, right? Well, I slipped up yesterday, and you know what? No guilt, no beating myself up anymore. You just go, oops, and you do it again. I think that's a really important thing along the step, because if you feel guilty about it or you beat yourself up, you make it worse. The more shame and guilt you attach to something, the more deeper that habit or that self-hatred will root. You cannot have compassion and self-hatred in the same energy. So you have to be self-compassionate. So not beating yourself up for mistakes. And I guarantee, even if you don't know why, there is a reason why you've made certain mistakes in love relationships. And it has not been your conscious intent or fault.
Yeah.
There's been that deeper psychological, emotional drives that I'm talking about. I call them nice girl hooks, emotional hooks, whatever you want to call them. There's a deeper pattern that's functioning. So you're actually not at choice if your pattern is running the show. Your pattern is driving, and you're in the backseat yelling at your pattern, trying to get it to do what you want it to do. You know, and by the way, freaking out because the pattern's driving crazily all over the road. When the healing starts to happen, we put you in the driver's seat.
Right.
And suddenly your pattern goes in the back seat and no longer has power over you. And that's a process, you know, and if you think it's going to take, like, by the way, I love what someone else said when I was talking to them earlier today, and they said, well, you know, like this stuff is going to kick up. It's probably going to be really uncomfortable. It is. The first thing people always say to me is, oh my God, my eyes were opened. I just realized how many mistakes I was making. But the second step is to go, oh, that's why I've been making them. And it's not my fault. I'm not broken. I'm not flawed. I'm not unworthy. I have a wiring here that's not working. I have a pattern that's not working for me, and it's driving my car. And then the third step is we start getting it out of the driver's seat, putting you in the driver's seat more often. That's when all the empowerment, that's when the strength, that's when the natural confidence, that's when the self-worth reemerges. That's when the self-trust, and then the trust that love is on its way also, the universal sense of trust starts to root itself more deeply. And that will likely take you a year or more to get through all of those pieces. And it will be that step-by-step process. And how you don't slip up is by being hard on yourself in the process.
So I have a question for you. And this is really good. I love that you mentioned that it takes a year or something. You know, I've heard from women, and I've been there before, and thankfully I'm not there. But the thing is that I always hear that, you know, it's best if I work through all this stuff on my own, and if I don't date, like, I'm just gonna be on my own. Like, what do you have to say about that? Like, do you encourage women to spend some time by themselves, or to avoid dating altogether, or do you invite them to try dating in the process and just noticing and observing what comes up for them?
I love that question. And I also love your invitation to be intuitive. So I think we know when we need to, but let me also answer that question.
Yeah.
I was inviting you to also ask yourself that question about intuitively where you feel most. We don't grow and we don't change if we don't feel safe. So if you are the woman who walks into a date and that fear factor is like big, and you can't dial it down, and Miss Performer comes out, or shy shutdown girl comes out, or bitch resentful angry girl comes out because you're walled up and you can't let anyone in, don't date. Because what you're going to do is just repeat that cycle of I'm not lovable, because the mirror coming back at you is no one's interested in me, no one loves me, I can't get past the first date, there's something wrong with me, blah, 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 and you're just going to be beating yourself over the head with that shitty message. Sorry to swear, but sometimes you just got to. Let's just not date, okay? So if their pattern is in full gear and that fear factor is really high, and they just can't feel safe and be themselves on a date, then we want to actually create more emotional safety. And definitely, if you're feeling vulnerable and your core wound is on the surface, don't date. If you just came out of a really bad heartache and heartbreak and you haven't healed it, dealt with it, integrated it, understood it, and how that relates to your nice girl pattern, don't date. Take the break. If you've been shut down for a really long time, and again, you just cannot even imagine getting out there again, like it just feels too hard to do that because you haven't given yourself the tools, resources, and support to be able to get back in, don't date. Get ready to date. Get ready to be ready. Build the tools, build the resources, do the healing work, get the fear factor down, understand your pattern, get the support, fill up your love cup. If you're empty, do not date. Fill up your love cup, because the man you attract at that point is going to need you more than you need him, period.
It's all a reflection.
He's going to deplete you even further, and you're going to be even more exhausted and more empty and more alone, which is going to make you more desperate to go out and seek relationship again. Please break that pattern, right? So if you relate to any of those, don't date, okay? If you're in the healing journey, there's a point you need to start dating, because if you don't, you'll be even more afraid of dating. You got to kind of you got to get that muscle back again, and you got to know how to bring yourself into that uncomfortable zone of dating in a different way, because now you have the tools and resources. So there's someone also holding your hand, which is usually me or some other coach, right? That can help you step by step to just navigate it. And then all those normal dating issues that people have, like, does he like me? How's this going? What do I do here? How about that? What does this mean? Screening and all that kind of stuff. It'll stick. It'll actually work. And then that's when I give that to people. I work the core wound. We work the nice girl pattern. We understand that. We build up the confidence, the self-work, get the cup, it's my 7-step love-worthy process, get all that stuff in order, and then we integrate it. It's like you go to school and then you apply it to work, right? Then you get the job and apply it to work. You don't jump into the work without getting the schooling or try to do both at the same time. It's very overwhelming. So know which you're at. Yeah.
Know which step you're at. I love that, because you want to avoid overwhelm. Like, this process on itself, it's, it's
the experiences, right? Like, why would you add more woundedness to your woundedness, right? Or more frustration in an area that's frustrating. Even if you're dating, I don't know if you've noticed this when you're, because you're dating right now. I think you said you were dating still. Yeah. Way back when, but when I was dating before, what I noticed is that sometimes it just started to not feel very good, and you just got to take a step back, because if it's not feeling good, don't do it, right? It doesn't mean don't do it ever. It just means come back, realign, feel good again, recenter yourself, get your alignment going, take a break, take a breather, and then go back and do it again. It's just like work. If you feel like you're stuck on a problem, hammering the problem on your forehead is not going to get you very far. So just lean back, take a breather, and then come back at it again when you're creative and rested and refreshed and feel excited about it again. That way, and dating truly can become something that's enjoyable if you know the right ways to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that, summing it up, it's about talking to yourself in a loving way.
Yes.
Throughout the entire process, because the way that you talk to yourself defines the way that you show up, in any given situation, date, or anything. So sometimes what I've seen is that, like, you're being too nice outside with the world, but how are you treating yourself? How are you talking to yourself? So it's about, I think, integrating, that loving voice and being gentle with yourself.
Yeah. And so if you're listening to this conversation, just start to take inventory for the ways that you're giving yourself away to be loved, liked, or accepted, to come back into that place of what allows me to reconnect with my natural worthiness and self-worth, and then go from there, right? Stop doing the things that are giving you away, that are depleting your energy, that are taking the best of you in the world and distorting it. The most sad thing I ever see is that nice people are truly powerful, loving, humanitarian, giving, empathic, intuitive, strong, amazing, creative people. And they, after a while, don't feel that way anymore. They feel like the best of them has been used against them. They don't trust themselves. They don't trust anybody else. They get shut down. The best of their brilliance gets covered over, and they don't like themselves or life very much anymore, and they become desperately unhappy. And, I was that girl, and I never want to feel that way again. And my biggest thing is I never want anyone else to feel that way. I don't want anyone to feel that they're not lovable just because other people didn't love them sufficiently. You can find people who love you and see you and accept you for who you are. And that experience of unconditional love is the most powerful healing elixir in the world and the planet. And that is my deepest hope for you, is that you experience that, because it is profoundly beautiful and healing, and it's the way it was always meant to be for you.
Definitely. I love that. I truly, truly love that. And I want to thank you so much for participating in the summit and everything that you've shared. It's really a journey of going within and honoring yourself along the way. I mean, the biggest word or phrase that I got from it was unconditional love for yourself and for your life, basically. So thank you so much. I know that you have a special gift for all the ladies who are watching live and are part of the summit. Like, could you tell us a little bit more about what it is?
Yeah, let's deepen this conversation. So again, that we can stop the cycle of being overlooked and undervalued and underappreciated, and to not feel sufficiently loved. And so it's the 5 nice girl mistakes, which helps you understand, like, the top 5 that I say repeatedly over and over again, and why you do it, the starving for love cycle, and understanding that a little bit more deeply so that you really can break free.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love this interview. It was really, really, really powerful, and I got a lot of cognitions from it. And I know that a lot of the ladies here got it as well. So thank you once again, and I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Take care.